You are watching Fresh Outlook, and we thank our viewers in the U.S. and around the world for joining us. I'm Toschi. We thank you for spending an hour with us and taking a break from the world's most watched event. Yes, we're talking about the World Cup, which is our first topic this week. Now, here's a few facts. The competition has been played every 4 years since 1930, except in 1942 and 1946, when it was not held because of World War II. Now, the top winners, Brazil has won 5 times, Italia has won 4, Germany has 3 wins, Argentina and Uruguay with 2, and England, France, and Spain each have 1 title. So why do these games matter so much? Well, here's a couple of reasons. 715 million reasons. That's how many people watch. And that's 1 in 9 people in the world. That's more than the Olympics and more than the Super Bowl. But why isn't this game embraced in the U.S.? Let's have a look and talk it out.
Despite the transportation strike and heavy rains, fans arrived to watch Mexico kick the ball.
Just got here a couple hours ago, so beautiful weather, beautiful weather.
Meanwhile, Australian fans who made the trip for their team's opening World Cup match against Chile say they are confident in their team. The yellow and green decorations around town may be meant for Brazil, but it creates a good mood for the Australians, who share the colors. How will Germany do? According to Regina, Deutschland will beat Portugal. Regina is an octopus who lives in Berlin.
This might happen. At least I'm personally not that sure. But I'm not an oracle and I do not take part in the predictions.
Now the World Cup mascot is an armadillo. This armadillo is named Norman. Norman concurs with Regina. Spanish and Dutch football fans brought no visible oracles, but their presence created a sea of red and orange as those fans gathered downtown ahead of both teams' opening match.
Joining us now is my co-host and former White House aide Dee Dee Benkie, Frantz Louis, sports commentator, and we also have Dr. Alain Sanders from St. Peter's University, and we also have via Skype from Italy is Federico Casati. He's the editor-in-chief of Goal.com Italy, and grazie per essere la mostra, Federico.
Hi, Nia. Good afternoon, everybody.
Well, we certainly want to ask what the feel is over in Italy, but we want to first start off with our guest panelists here in the studio. And Dee Dee, we're just going to take the temperature here. And are you a big fan of soccer or football? Are you enjoying these World Cup games?
Okay, I've been converted because yesterday I watched the game and the Netherlands beat Spain, and everyone went nuts, and it was so interesting and asked a lot of questions. And where before, you know, I didn't quite get it, but now I'm into it. I'm in. I'm a World Cup fan.
Okay, Dr. Sanders, how about you?
I'm not a regular fan of soccer. I do enjoy watching a match now and then, but I can't say that I'm a go-go fan.
Now, Frantz, little did I know that you are a soccer player and a kind of a star in your own right. This must be one of the most exciting times of the year, or I should say of every 4 years.
How could you not? I mean, it's the event of the world. It's the event that everybody in the entire world is watching and wants to be a part of. I mean, being a player, I've always enjoyed playing, not only that, but coaching and watching. I mean, it brings people together, it brings everybody together, and I think it is the moment, the time of the year is now, and if you're not watching, you're losing out.
Okay, well, we want to check in with Federico, but we also want to talk to you, Frantz, about why it hasn't really caught on here in the U.S. Now, Federico, you're over there in Italy, where my family is. I've heard that the mood is pretty electric. Just talk to us about what the Italians are feeling. Another win this year, you think?
Well, I agree with what your last guest said. World Cup is one of the very few unifying events here in Europe and in Italy, above all. In Italy, for instance, of course, the soccer addicted people are following.
As you were saying, it unifies Europe, but it doesn't quite unify Americans quite the same way. And Frantz, you know, we both have lived all over the world. Why don't you think Americans have really caught on?
Well, first of all, I think soccer is somewhat of a, in America, somewhat of an elitist sport. It's not what it's perceived as it is in other countries. For example, in Brazil and Africa, you know, it's typically for poor people. You know,
well, it just needs a ball
it's
and a
the
net.
people's game. In America, it's seen differently. It's more seen as a way to get a scholarship, at the youth level, it's just something for soccer moms and to get their kids busy and healthy if you can afford it. Not everybody can afford it. I mean, even in America, even if it's the poorest people's choosing a sport, it won't be soccer. It might be basketball, for example, or even pee-wee football.
Well, we want to certainly get who you think are, and we want to get everybody's predictions also. But why do you think Americans should care about the World Cup? And Dee Dee, I'll ask you that question.
Yeah, because last week I was kind of like, I don't get it. I don't understand. We don't really play that in Indiana. And then I tell you what, people watched in Indiana this show, and they gave me the hardest time. They said, "You are clueless. You don't know. People in Indiana really do like the sport." I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna learn to like this, or at least check it out. I love it. It's fascinating and it's exciting, and just really, I think in a lot of parts of the country, they just really haven't paid attention. But if they do, I think they'll fall in love with it.
And let's talk about some of the Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the most popular, of course. Let's just talk about some of the numbers right now. He's got 26.5 million followers on Twitter. He makes $80 million. Oh,
is that all?
That's all.
What a slacker.
Well, he's. I mean, if you look at Ronaldo, I mean, he is a Twitter machine, a social media machine. I mean, his look in the world is that he needs to reach out to as many as possible, and that's what he's doing. I mean, on Twitter, that was the number, but on Facebook, it's 70 million. I mean, if you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, he is the #1 player in the world that is being followed. Kobe Bryant is following him.
Okay. Well, let's talk about just role models, if you will, of some of these sports figures. We've got a lot of people say, like, the hockey players here in the U.S. are some of the best role models for kids. How do you rate the soccer players?
I think in this country, in terms of role models, I think they're as good as any other player, for that matter.
Well, I would say there is, let me preface it also by saying there's some controversy with a couple of players in a couple of different sports. I think that's fair to say.
What else is new? Every sport.
Sure.
Without naming a lot, but there's not as many controversies, if you will, with the soccer players.
Well, they represent their countries in many ways, and so I think for some of them, for many of them, there's a sense of national pride and a sense of putting the best foot forward, so to speak, if I can use that pun in soccer. And I think that accounts for it. Also, there's a lot of national passion in the sport. I mean, it does bring people together because millions and hundreds of millions of people watch it. But there's also a great nationalistic input in soccer. And to put a political science component into it, these are rivalries. I mean, many of these countries are rivals, political rivals in many ways. And so rather than act it out on the political stage, this is acted out in a sports arena, which in many ways is a far better place to act out your political rivalries. So it does bring people together, but it's also an outlet. It's a cathartic event or set of events to bring out your nationalist passions.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Frantz. I just want to go over there. I'll do the Italian commentary, but I want to be able to scream, "Goal!" I just think that they're fabulous and exciting commentators over there. But we were talking about why we should care here in America. Like, more, is it because, I mean, there's a lot of dollars here also at stake.
Well, soccer is as American as apple pie.
I happen to agree with you.
If you look at how this country began, and if you look at how sport in general began, it began with soccer from the immigrants coming to this country. Yes, it didn't get a chance to take precedence over other American sports, but soccer is at the bedrock of this country. I mean, it is a game for everyone, and this country is everyone, and we're from everywhere, and it brings everybody together here.
And I want to talk about what's happening over in Brazil right now, because we do have, there are some protests taking place. Unfortunately, there are some incidents as well. But let's talk about 3 million tickets were sold. There's something like 600,000 visitors over there, and people that can't even get into the game. So they're really not even able to handle these crowds.
They can't get in the games because they can't afford it.
Right.
I mean, this World Cup is interesting because, one, it's extremely expensive to go to Brazil. Everything has been multiplied by 5.
Inflated, absolutely.
I mean, it is probably the most unfair World Cup in history.
Well, they've also taken quite a few of the folks in areas folks that are lower income, and they've moved them, which is also quite unfair as well.
It's terrible.
Now, Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, is going to be over there watching the games today, and they are expecting some protests as well, hoping that it's not obviously going to get out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect it to get out of hand, but this is what my take is. I think people want to be heard, and the perception of Brazil is this happy place. Everybody's laughing, dancing. Sure, they are. Everybody is, but there is a serious issue after this World Cup. There's going to be a serious issue with inflation. Sure. I mean, it's going to be at a point where the elitists, the 1%. Are the ones that are being targeted for this World Cup, I think. Because if you look at Brazil, even in their league, their domestic league, the people that go to the games are regular folks. Now, these regular folks, their average, their monthly salaries are like a quarter of what we make here. And now if you multiply all that by 5 and expect them to go to these World Cup games, it's not going to happen. I've seen some empty seats in games already.
Right, and I think, the games are highlighting the social inequalities of that exist in Brazil. Lots of money is being expended to build these facilities, but a lot of ordinary people are still struggling economically.
That's not really unique, though, because that happens even here in our
That's right.
country.
Well,
you know, the Rangers game when,
Sure.
you have these fans, they're just
That's
really
right,
avid fans, but, it's the rich guys on Wall Street that get to go because they've got the cash.
But,
Well, it's the
Latin
same thing
America,
with the Super Bowl. I mean,
Right.
it costs a ton of money to go there.
Right. But Latin America has a great tradition of street protests, so I think when people feel unhappy and they see this, they go back to the
probably part of the
traditional
strike.
street
They're
protests.
probably angry, so that's
Sure.
probably part of
Sure.
why they're striking.
And if you take a look at what the winning team wins, $35 million, does that offend anybody?
I'm not offended. Look, I think if you can win something like that, and look how hard they work, I'm not for it. I don't have a problem with that. Why not?
I mean, money is a major topic when it comes to FIFA, when it comes to federations, and when it comes to football, soccer. There was even one player from Cameroon. He was protesting to not come to the games, and he was the leader of this team. And he said, we won't go to the World Cup days before, or not even like 24 hours before coming. He was saying, if our players are not getting what they're supposed to be compensated, like our European brothers and our Asian brothers, we're not coming. So at that level, yes. I mean, the money is it's what the players want to get, Now,
I want to just ask you, then I'm going to ask everybody to make their predictions, but Frantz, very quickly, what was your favorite moment in World Cup history?
Favorite moment? Oh, wow.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
It's got to be, oh, goodness, it's got to be Maradona. Maradona's, as they call it, when he did the magical hand. I mean, that moment was fantastic. I mean, he's probably one of the best players.
Can you emulate the magical hand? What did he do?
I mean, he just...
For the novice here, what's the magical hand?
He made believe he had the ball, but it kind of went, and you thought it was like it wasn't his hand, but it was, but he kind of cheated, but it's probably the most celebrated moment in World Cup history.
And of course, 8 years ago, Italy won. Let's check in with Federico. Federico, predictions as to who's going to win the World Cup?
Well, I predict a final between Argentina and Brazil because Brazil is the host team, and as we all witnessed just in the opening game, it's not really the strongest team, but he has some kind of help from the referees and from the whole ambient, And Argentina is not an exceptional team, but they have Leo Messi, who is along with Cristiano Ronaldo, is the best player in the world. Messi needs somehow to win the World Cup.
For that prediction, and I'm in agreement. Thank you again for being on the show. Dee Dee, thoughts very, very quickly. Maybe not who you think might win, but who you want to win.
I think Brazil should win it. They've got the hometown advantage, and they've had some strife down there. I'm for Brazil.
Dr. Sanders.
I'll defer to the experts, and for the sake of world peace, the best team.
Okay, and Frantz?
I think it's going to be Brazil. They have to win it. They're on home turf. They are the favorites. They've got Neymar. They've got Diego Costa, one of the best players, strikers right now. He's on fire. Alves. I mean, that team is star-studded. They must win for the sake of survival in Brazil. And for the rest of the people
all
that are still
right,
there.
go Brazil. Well, I have to go with Italy, but we'll see what happens.
Italy-Brazil final, maybe.
Okay, there we go. All right, don't go away, everyone. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Syria situation in Iraq. ISIS is now a household name. The terrorist organization is said to be more powerful than Al-Qaeda and have taken over several of Iraq's largest cities. What is President Obama going to do, and what can he do? We'll talk that out when we return.